Yo, partnership alert, partnership alert, partnership alert. Living Corporate has a partnership with LinkedIn Learning, an American massive open online course provider that provides video courses taught by industry experts across a wide array of subjects. Now, the partnership is because Living Corporate has courses on LinkedIn Learning focused on diversity, equity, inclusion for leaders, career professionals, and anyone really looking to upskill themselves and be better allies. So make sure you check out our courses on LinkedIn Learning by clicking the link in the show notes. And let's just say you don't want to do that. When you go to LinkedIn Learning on LinkedIn, search Living Corporate. We'll be right there. All right? Peace.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to The Break Room, a podcast where we talk about Black mental health in the workplace. I'm Dr. Olajide Bamishigbin, and I'm a health psychologist and a father of two and a husband as well. Nice to meet you. So kicking it over to Dr. Brian.
Hey, y'all. It's good to see you back for, what is this, season 2.573?
Yes, it's season 2.A.
Yeah.
2.A.
2B.
That's what I'm
2B. There you go. I love it. Well, it's good to see everybody again. I'm Dr. Brian Dixon. I'm a child, adolescent, and adult psychiatrist in Fort Worth, where I work with families and adults and everybody in between to help them reintegrate mental health into their modern lifestyle. So I will kick it over to Dr. Nikki.
Hello, everybody. I am Dr. Nikki. I am a PsyPAC credentialed licensed psychologist and sex self-confidence coach. And I work.
One of the 15 to follow on TikTok and Instagram, by the way.
Right. That is right. So if you're not following me, why are you playing yourself? I work with Black women and couples primarily on racial awareness and why can't I remember what I do? Relational and sexual wellness. My goodness. That's how, so today's topic is going to be fire litty. What do the kids say? I'm the resident elder of the podcast as well. And so what we're going to talk about today has really just put me in a tailspin. Mm-hmm. So I am not operating in my full cognitive capacity. I just want to own that.
Mm-hmm. So here we are. So usually here's how it goes. We do a tea, kind of like when you sip the tea, we talk about a little gossip, then we get into our topic, and then we end with the last nerve. Okay, I see the brisk iced tea, that and the Texas tea. My tea is metaphorical. I don't actually have tea, but so we start with the tea, right? Then we get into our topic, and then we end with the last nerve, something that just got on your nerves, okay? And that's usually how it goes, all right? But it has been the last 24 hours have been unbelievable, and the last week has been somewhat, I'd say predictable, though, sadly. I think what the topic we're talking about has been predictable, right? So today, what we're going to do, we're going to talk about our tea, okay? So we're just going to get into it, all right? So our tea, okay? So we're filming this on March 28th, 2022, okay? So yesterday was the Oscars, okay? The 2022 Oscars, right? And if you're listening to this, I'm sure you've heard about the slap heard around the world, okay? So
I don't even know when that phrase, what was the event that created that phrase? Because this to me is now the only way to talk about it, the slap heard around the world. I know there was a previous historical event in which that was relevant.
It was called the shot heard around the world. And I think it may have been like American Revolution or one
Crispus
of them.
Attucks?
Maybe so.
Why? Okay.
Well, that's all gone now. We're talking about the slap heard around the world. Like nothing. Listen, this is the slap heard around the world, okay? This sounds like a game of Mad Libs, okay? Will Smith, A-list actor, okay, box office king, right?
Oscar award winning. Let's not forget that part.
Sorry, now Oscar award winning Will Smith in the middle of the Oscar live broadcast, okay?
Around the world,
walked up on stage while Chris Rock was hosting, okay? After let me take this back. Chris Rock was on stage presenting an award, and he made a joke about Jada Pinkett. Will Smith, A-list actor, Oscar award-winning Will Smith, walked on stage and slapped him in the middle of the set. Okay.
That man slapped that man dead in the mouth. Mouth.
You ever heard about getting slapped into next week? That was what we saw.
I know Chris Rock's face was on fire. I know the whole side of that face.
You know, and he didn't rub it. That's the good thing. You know, they said his face was sizzling like fajitas, but they're lucky he didn't rub it, you know? So, like, this is just so... nobody could have predicted. Even up to him, walking up to him, I don't think anybody expected him to cock back and slap this man, okay? Correct. And even still, everybody thought at first it was like a gag or as part of the show. But when Will Smith sat back down, you heard him screaming and cursing, "Keep my wife's effing name out your mouth. Keep my wife's effing name out your mouth," okay? So, as you would expect, this has caused what you can say is the discourse, okay? Discourse, all right?
That's generous.
You know, I'm trying to be professional, you know. So, Dr. Nikki, what are your thoughts? I'd like to hear your thoughts.
And that's the whole problem with, I have so many thoughts about this. So for me, let me try to lay out the professional. Let me try to lay out why I think this is so complicated. Because for me, this one incident speaks on anti-Blackness, toxic masculinity, professionalism in the workplace, violence as an agent of patriarchy, and unresolved trauma, unresolved emotional regulation, or underdeveloped emotional regulation,
celebrity.
It's so many layers to it. And respectability politics, and the vulnerability of Black women. And for me, what I think is particularly shocking above all is I think this one moment in time really explains how little of a handle we all have on any of this shit. Like, because it's one thing for all of these to be talking points, and for us, like, there are scholars that research pretty much any of those topics that I've listed, right? But to see it all unfold, it in the way that it did, like
in a slap.
And so I think so let me add, and then, so for me, there's those layers, and then we can't have this conversation without also like making it personal and real, because that's what we do at the break room. And I think part of what I've been struggling with is like, is my shock and discomfort with it about respectability politics? I'm not quite sure. I do think, though, there's a time and a place for certain kinds of violence. And I've seen a lot of particularly Black women push back against that concept and that idea. And I think I'm just really struggling with the public nature of it all. To me, it would have been less shocking and overwhelming if it had happened on commercial break. Like if Will Smith had rushed Chris Rock after the cameras went off and been like, "Keep my wife's name out your fucking mouth." It had been a tussle in the wings. I would have been like, okay, I can see that. But that he was so dysregulated that he just got up, walked on the stage, and like, it was one of those things where it all unfolded in slow motion, because nobody did anything. Nobody said, "Will, what you doing? Hey man, where you going?" Chris Rock didn't be like, "Hey brother, what's going?" Like, it just happened.
Didn't expect it at all. In fact, Chris Rock leaned in to be like, "Hey, what are you gonna say?" I don't know if y'all noticed that, but
he did.
He literally leaned in.
He did.
Ooh, y'all.
He did. He did. He did.
It's shocking.
Nobody was expecting it. Nobody.
And I think part of what makes it shocking, I'm gonna let y'all talk for sure, but I think the other piece that I was talking with other people about is the fact that Will Smith, at least in my experience, has cultivated a very particular image. And that moment was anti to every part of that image. So I think that's it took me a while for my brain to sort of, I'm not going to speak in past tense, I'm still trying to assimilate this new piece of knowledge. Because when I first looked at my phone, I was like, Will Smith slapped Chris Rock at the Oscars. I don't like, is this code for something? No, there's video footage. Will Smith
in 8K. Okay, every angle, left, right, front, center, back.
Ultra high definition. I'm laughing because it's uncomfortable laughing. Like, I honestly don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say because I mean I can't do anything but kind of laugh because you're right, it's uncomfortable, and humor is a mature defense mechanism. So if you're listening to the podcast, go back to season 1 and 2 because we talk about defense mechanisms a lot. Yeah, for me, I'm coming back to the weathering idea, or the idea that we had talked about. I think maybe even offline, where it's kind of like we are all Black people are super bone tired and weary because the intensity and the irritation that that Will Smith had at Chris Rock, that there's something else going on. And I don't know that they're beefing any other time. I mean, because I'm sure Chris has his own stuff. He's off to life and he got paid to try to be funny at an award show. I have this feeling that I can't remember if it's displacement or projection or what, but it feels like Will took out every frustration that ever occurred to him over the last 2 years on that one dude who was just trying to make a joke. Now, with that said, this is a full disclaimer. I had no idea that Jada Pinkett Smith had alopecia.
Me either.
No idea. And so that's why when he made the joke, I wasn't even thinking about it. I was like, okay, all right, whatever. So I didn't know that until I was reading it on the Twitster, and they're like, "Oh, you shouldn't make fun of people." And I was like, "What do you make fun of?" Because lots of people wear their hair. Cynthia Erivo wears her hair really short. Like lots of people wear it really short. So I didn't realize that there was a thing. And so I was talking to my partner, and he was like, "Oh, well, Jada talked about it on her talk show or whatever that thing.
Red Table Talk on
Red
Facebook."
Table Talk.
And I was like, is Chris Rock supposed to go and do all the research on everybody that he makes fun of to make sure that he doesn't step on some like hot button issue? That seems a bit unfair. But
so a lot of people have said he knew, he had to have known. That's what I've heard. I don't know what I don't know what he knew.
I will say, according to Charlemagne the God, not somebody I listen to regularly, he said he spoke to Chris Rock, and Chris Rock said he did not know that she had alopecia. That is the thing. And people keep saying, well, he had to have known. And I'm kind of like, well, listen, if somebody said they don't know, they might not know, Right. Let's dissect this, okay? I want to dissect this, okay?
Please, get it.
The joke. How do y'all feel about the joke? Let's stop there. Chris Rock made a reference to her being in G.I. Jane 2, okay? How do y'all feel about that joke? Leave it there.
So for me, that context really matters, right? And here's what I also think is fascinating too about defense mechanism. For me, about defense mechanisms, unregulated emotions and like context, right? And respectability politics. Because if you also watch, Chris Rock makes the joke, and then Will Smith is laughing, and so I don't like. And that made me think about how many times all Black folks have been in a quote unquote professional workspace or with white folks and been microaggressed. And you're like, ha, and then you're like, wait a minute, bitch, you talking about me. Like it takes you a minute to sort of catch up like, oh, we've crossed over into racism now. And so I do think the whole thing had a momentum. And I wonder if the fact that Will realized that he had somehow been made to participate in his own wife's denigration is really what triggered him. There's some other things that I have heard third hand, because I haven't read his memoir, where he talks in his memoir about growing up in a violent and physically abusive household and having unresolved guilt because he didn't defend physically or in his estimation vigorously enough his mother at the time, right? And so here is to Dr. Dixon's defense mechanism argument around what I would call it is displacement, right? So you can't take out the feeling that you feel, the unresolved feelings that you have about one thing or one other person, so you take it out on someone else. And I think that was a part of what happened. Another layer to this that we haven't even gotten into is I haven't heard Jada's voice in any of this. None. And so let me talk as like a cis Black woman about this idea around protecting Black women. And so and I was having this conversation with a dear and trusted friend to like work out like how was I having sort of different reactions than maybe some of the other Black women whose opinions and scholarship I respect. Excuse me. I have been in the position of dating someone and being out and being quote unquote disrespected by someone and having that person want to then fight the other people. And I didn't like it. I'm like, you're not doing me any favors because this is going to lead to some bullshit now that I am centered in, that I didn't ask to be centered in. And this is going to lead to consequences that I don't want to be bothered with. I don't want to be bothered with you being, like irrevocably harmed or seriously harmed. I don't want to deal with there being police being involved, when things pop off. Like that's never been a fun thing to me. It has in fact made me feel more vulnerable and more uncomfortable. And I was also wondering about how Jada felt in that moment. I could tell she had a reaction.
Rolled her eyes.
Right. But did she want it to become that spectacle? I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, I I remember the wise words of my mama, God rest her soul. And she, anytime my brothers would come home and they would get into fights at school, and or somebody was trying to, how you ride your mom, riffs or whatever Black folks call those things nowadays. We used to call it riding each other, right?
They call it roasting. It's still
roasted. Oh, it's called roasted.
Rankin.
Yeah, there you go. And so we would come home and my brothers would be like, well, Mama, they were talking about you, and Mama, they said this, and Mama, they said that. And I will never forget, my mom was like, tell them to come say that to my face, right? I don't need y'all fighting on my behalf. I don't need you going out and doing any of that stuff. If they want to be big and bad, tell them to come to my house and say that into my face. And I was like, holy shit, that's a game changer. And so I took that with me everywhere ever since. And so part of me is like, I interpret it now as she wants to have agency over her life and how things go for her, and she doesn't want her kids to get sucked into all of that. Is how I take it now. But yeah, that's interesting, Nikki, Dr. Nikki.
And so on the other side, people are saying no one ever defends or protects Black women, and so here's where I take issue with that part. You slapping somebody else in the face don't protect me. Like that doesn't feel like protection to me. Creating a context in which men make it uncomfortable for other men to denigrate Black women, that's protecting me. Like create the barrier before it even touches me. Defending me is a different conversation, right? And so if we think that moment, like if we take the assumption that Chris Rock knew for in fact that she had alopecia, and in fact that she also felt insecure, uncomfortable, or unattractive because of said alopecia, and then made the joke, then we have to hold him accountable for that bad behavior. My question then becomes, is that accountability a slap in the mouth while you're doing your job?
In front of millions of people live on television in 8K.
Billions.
Right, I was gonna say multi-millions. I mean, because we're talking all of Europe, all of any westernized
Australia,
space.
Japan, yep.
Any space that could have had a film represented or audio editing, whatever, all the things that the Oscars represent. It's not just in the US, it's all over the damn world. And dude, that was the moment. I don't know. I still can't get to the place. I cannot get to the place where justifying that, or that it also needs to be held up as a standard now, because I've seen that too.
I also did not know Jada Pinkett Smith had alopecia. Okay. I want to point that out. That is news to me. And you know how Twitter is now. Everybody acts like everybody knew the whole time. And I'm kind of like, so all of y'all knew this, like all of y'all watch Red Table, everybody, so I didn't know. I think clearly, obviously by everything that happened, it's not a good joke. It's not a good joke. Okay. The slap, okay? The walk up and the slap. Dr. Dixon, how do you feel about the walk up and the slap?
So I am an absolutionist when it comes to certain things, and I am one of those folks where, again, my mama said, you do not put your hands on anybody, right? You do not put your hands on anybody. I don't give a shit who you are. I tell my kids this in my clinic. I tell adults that you keep your hands to yourself. Period. So yeah, so that shocked the absolute shit out of me. I'm still kind of reeling from that. I mean, he could have leaned over and said, "I'm going to kick your ass" during the commercial break.
Yep.
He could have. I mean, yeah, like Dr. Nikki said earlier, dysregulated, and we may have to go in and kind of explain some of what that means, because yes, that was a man that was absolutely
out of control.
Yep.
Out of control.
Yep.
He lost it. He got triggered and he lost it. Right.
100%.
Yep.
So I'm not a pacifist. Some people need that. Some people need hands.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because I'm clear about that. And for some reason, this particular incident bothers me. And I'm going to be honest, I haven't figured out where the disconnect resides for me. And that's why I'm wondering if it is some respectability politics for me. I don't know that it is. I don't know that it's not. But I'm really trying to wrestle with why I felt like that slap was so out of context. Right. And so here's the thing, because I'm not a pacifist, I recognize that some things that people say out their mouth requires physical reaction. Right. Like I could see that someone saying something as violent or disrespectful in a moment could require a physical response. I get that as a concept. I don't see how that applies to this particular situation. And I think that's where I continue to get stuck. And then the other layer with that to me is comedians who do stand up make their living off of denigrating people. That everybody who's gone to a stand up show, you know, you either are choosing quote unquote choosing violence when you sit in the front so that you can be called out, or you intentionally don't because you don't want to deal with that shit. Right. And the Oscars has a tradition of doing that. Ricky Gervais has said way more out of
at the
pocket.
Golden Globes. He went way out.
Golden Globes, way out of fucking pocket. So these sort of award shows are set up with that standard of like, I mean, a great deal of stand-up comedy by Black, white, Asian, male, and female people is going after the least common denominator. So that shit ain't new. Are we going to have a conversation about changing the face of comedy now? Is that where we are? I don't know. And I'm going to say one last thing. I see where you want to jump in, Jada, but I'm going to say this one last thing because I do think it's particularly important.
Please.
More so than white gaze, I think that what we have also happening is this social media gaze. I think there's this whole other element in the room about wanting to make sure you get on the right platform at the right time to hop on the hot topic and have the right hot take. And then that then colors our reality about what the situation is or isn't. And then everybody either gets on board or you anti. And that's a whole other element of this fuck shit to me. That's what this whole part is. That makes it so hard to like reconcile.
Everything is black and white on social media. You know, there's no space for nuance. There's nothing for it. So I think for myself, I also am not a pacifist. You know, I those videos of white people calling somebody the N-word and getting slapped, I'm kind of like, sign me up for it. You know, like seriously.
What day of the week is that?
I want to be clear. I'm not a pacifist, right? But also, just like Dr. Nikki, this wasn't it, brother. You know, one. Sorry, I just have so many thoughts. This is the Oscars. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, this is a publicly listen, Diddy is known for slapping people. They say he slapped J. Cole and they say he slapped Drake. Seriously, at like an after party. There's no video of it though. Do you know what I'm saying? There's no audio of it. There's no camera of it. It's just what people say about it, right? You slap this man in the middle of the set. I feel like he could have got his point across walking up and saying, "Don't talk about my fucking wife." That would have been great. That would have shook that would have took my panties off. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think that would have been great. You know, there's so many ways to do it, but slapping him immediately makes you the bigger jerk to me. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're like, you know, you're the bigger jerk. Because and this is me, and I think there's reasonable disagreement here. I think words can be violent. Okay. I don't think words are violence. And I know that there are people who feel like words are violence. Words can be violent. If I say, "I'm going to kill you," that's clearly a violent thing to say. But without the actual action, I don't view that as violence, right? So to respond to it with a public slap in front of all these people, you know, and also there's a whole blot about this, right? You know, they're saying, oh, you know, she has alopecia, that's a disability. Well, as I was talking with, you know, Dr. Brian earlier, Chris Rock also has a form of autism, right? Nonverbal learning disorder, right? So like, okay, if you want to play that card, you just walked up and slapped a disabled man on television.
And maybe that's why he didn't respond.
You're 100% correct. Yep.
Maybe because and what was fascinating is like he had to process it. Like he was like, Will Smith just came up on stage. Like, it's not funny.
He tried to keep the show going, actually.
Like, wait a minute, something just happened to me and I need a moment to integrate this shit. Because something happened at my place of business. Like I'm at work. That's the other part. I'm at work. This is a work function. This is my job.
A work
I got
function.
paid to do this.
This is a work function.
And I did the thing that I got paid to do. I made jokes. I'm cracking on people. I joined your wife. Like I got paid to do that. I did what I was paid to do, and then you slapped me.
And then
what is happening?
That's not. It's not okay. I personally don't think it's okay. You know, and once again, like when you escalate to violence, just like both of you mentioned, so many things can go wrong. Okay, because if Chris Rock would have said, I'm calling the police on you, you would have got escorted in handcuffs in the middle of the Oscars. Is that what you want on the night where you're winning the Oscar? Is that what you want for yourself in front of your family? Like you could, and you know, there's Twitter jokes about this and people saying it's crazy. You can really hit somebody and they fall down and hit their head and they die. That has actually happened in real life. And then guess what? Oh, well, they made fun of my wife. Is that worth 10 years in jail, 15 years in jail?
That's manslaughter, friends. That's or maybe murder too, depending on the state. Like,
it's not worth it. Also, you know, and obviously this is the Oscars. People wasn't strapped up. You know, people didn't have knives. In real life,
we assume we don't know them people business.
You don't know who's been training in boxing for the last 20 years, who gonna knock your head off, and then you got your ass whooped in front of your girl. Is that what you really wanted? Right? You don't know who's carrying a knife or a gun. You don't know if somebody just got out of brain surgery the day before, such that you hit them in their head. We just don't know these things. So responding with violence is not the answer. And I'm saying this, I've been in a physical altercation before. I'm never proud of it. It's not something to be proud of, okay? And that leads me to my next question to all of you, okay? How do you feel about, so we talked about the joke, right? We talked about the slap. How do you feel about the response within and outside? So after, you know, there's videos of Samuel Jackson, Denzel Washington, Bradley Cooper coming and consoling Will Smith, right? Consoling Will Smith, right? And then on social media, many people standing up for your partner, standing up for your love, you know.
No, they ain't what they
thing.
saying. They ain't saying partner. They saying your woman. It's a
your
very
woman.
patriarchal thing.
That's true. It's true. It's
very patriarchal.
Get into it. Let's get into it.
Because if Will Smith was with Jade Pinkett Smith, if it was a dude, it wouldn't have been the same shit. People would not have responded in the same way.
Nope.
And that to me is where the patriarchy part comes in. This is where I do tend to lean more into what Brian was saying about his mom, right? Like, did Jada feel the need to get up and slap him? No. So then Will Smith, why are you responding like that? Like, if I tell you, hey babe, handle this, handle it. If I don't ask you to tap in, I'm good, right? Like, I just think, there's such a inherent socialization around masculinity and I want to say ownership. I really do. Like, your woman is your property. Your woman belongs to you. And so you garner respect from other men by how you allow that person to be treated.
It feels very much Animal Kingdom, like
very
Animal
much
Planet. The lion kills the other lion. That's what I got.
That part doesn't sit well with me. Now I will go back and say today, I do believe words can be violence. I do believe that.
Yeah.
This to me wasn't it. I guess that's the other piece. And then there's a part of me that also wonders, relevant to this last point. Would Will Smith have done that if it wasn't Chris Rock?
If it was The Rock? Hell no. Hell no. He would not have run up and
Oh.
slapped The Rock.
I
Absolutely
didn't
not.
think about that.
Or do you think he would have done that to Billy Crystal? Absolutely not.
Ricky Gervais. I don't see it happening.
And even if he did, on top of that, then do you think he's gonna go back and sit down?
No.
The security guard wouldn't even let you on the stage.
Security is in the building. That's to me the anti-blackness piece. That's to me why everybody in that room sat there and watched two black men do that. Like have that level. I don't even know if it's fair to even say two black men have a physical altercation because only one person got assaulted, but that level of violence is acceptable to some extent because they were two black men. I can't be convinced that that's not true.
That is exactly what would have happened. I was talking to my sister about this, and we were kind of thinking like, what white actor would do this? And I said, I think Christian Bale might. You know, Batman. He might run up on stage if he felt disrespected, but I just
can even see like
can't
a
see
Chris.
it happen.
Which one of the other Chris? The Captain America Chris.
Oh, Chris Evans.
Chris Evans. I doubt it. I don't think so.
No.
You don't think so?
I don't think so.
He got
No.
that in him?
He smokes a lot of weed. He's very chill, like all the time.
And that's the other thing. I don't pay enough to celebrity. I really don't.
Yeah.
Which I think is another layer to this, but
yeah, oh my gosh, there's so many layers. It's not even funny because so violence makes me nervous. I like watching violence. That's why I don't watch MMA fighting. Is because when people are like willfully trying to hurt each other, that makes me very uncomfortable. If you're wearing boxing gloves, then it's structured, right? It's a sport, I guess. But this whole event, and I haven't shared this with a whole bunch of people because I'm trying to hold two different concepts in my brain. So when I was first out of residency, I was practicing at a clinic and working with a family. It was a teenage boy, 16, 17, something like that, and his mom was working her ass off, y'all. Like she bent over backwards for this dude, and all he did was complain. Every time we come in, he complained how he doesn't have this, he doesn't have that. Anyway, make a long story short, one session, he was complaining and his mom was like, look, I'm just tired of you complaining. And he literally looked at her and said, you need to shut up, bitch. And she stood up and she moved so fast. I'm still so surprised. She slapped the shit out of him and then immediately started crying. And he was like, oh my God, what just happened? He gets up and he leaves. And then I'm sitting there, a brand new doctor right out of residency going, did I just see what
yes, you did. Yes, you did.
And I was like, well, I have to do my doctorly duty, which is, Mom, please don't do that again. That's not very helpful. That's not how we resolve things. But then in the back of my mind, I'm like, you cannot go around disrespecting people, right? And again, I don't like violence, but you can't do that. And so when I try to overlay that over this whole thing, I mean, Black Hollywood is small. I mean, he knows Chris Rock. Chris Rock knows. I mean, they all know each other. Now, they may not know the intimate details of each other, but it almost feels like there's a community aspect. And so I'm struggling over how they let this go in, post George Floyd, post everything else going on. I'm like, y'all, this is, So I don't know.
Because this is what they expect from Black people. So it's kind of like, Black men being violent. I can't imagine any other demographic group that happening to, and everybody just going on with the show like nothing happened. I just can't. I just cannot. I simply cannot.
Simply cannot. I think that's the other piece that we haven't talked about is the show did go on. Like they didn't even cut to commercial break. I think that's a form of anti-blackness. They didn't even cut to commercial break. Chris Rock had to gather himself and continue on with announcing.
Congrats to Questlove. It's like I just.
Well, wait, did y'all hear that? And let me confirm this, but I'm about to put it speaking into existence. But I heard that the producer of the show was an African American person.
Yeah, Will Packer.
Yes.
Oh, okay. So. Yeah.
Okay.
Layers.
So,
you're right, Nikki.
Now I want to ask you all.
It's too many layers.
About the discourse. Okay. I want to ask you about the discourse. So personally, I've seen some tweets, okay, that have absolutely just like blown me away. Okay. People assuming that Well, if you don't, people who otherwise, I believe, are against toxic masculinity and believe in healthy masculinity and are always talking about like feminism and stuff like that, who are just like, well, Will Smith did what he had to do. If you don't support him, you're ableist and you're engaging in misogynoir. And I'm like, okay, and this is what Dr. Nikki was talking about. Hold on. We don't have to take it that far. Somebody can say, I don't think that was acceptable. Somebody can say, I don't think it was acceptable to slap somebody at the Oscars without being ableist.
without being like misogynoirist. Like I can still, everything I do is centered around Black women. And I still don't think that was acceptable for you to walk up in that space. And I think about it like this. I know when I was teaching, the courses I was teaching around oppressive ideology and social justice and equity, I know I piss white people off. Every time I put up the definition of what racism is and how systemic racism is and how everybody is socialized and culpable in this system, white people would get offended over and over and over again. Mm-hmm. Are we saying that it would have been acceptable for one of them to come up and slap me in my face? Hell fucking no. So the same application has to apply here. We, as a society, we have to have some civility. It's got to be some standards. Mm-hmm. And to me, this wasn't it. Mm-hmm. This just was not it. And he could have said, Will Smith could have even stayed in his seat and yelled what he yelled from his seat, and that would have shut Chris Rock down.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. He could have handled it better. Like, there's nothing inherently bigoted about saying he could have handled it better. He could have handled it better. You know, and also piggybacking on your point, I just want to say there's many a Black man in jail right now who swore they were defending their honor, defending somebody else's honor. Let's be clear. Okay? Taken away from their children, taken away from their families, taken away from their friends, taken away from their freedom, taken away from their dignity because, well, somebody disrespected me. Somebody disrespected my dog. Somebody whatever. Listen, no. I thought we're not condoning this.
Right. I thought we wasn't on that. I thought we was on some other stuff. Mm-hmm. But we saying this was warranted because she was a Black woman or because she has a medical condition.
Everybody hates toxic masculinity up until.
Help me. I fully recognize that my internalized ableism is strong. Mm-hmm. And I'm always worried. Is it ableist? It's a medical condition that creates.
It's an autoimmune disorder.
It's an autoimmune disorder. But it creates a aesthetic.
Correct.
Is that a disability?
It does.
You see what I'm saying? Like, that's what I think about in terms of ableism. So help me.
Yeah, that's an excellent question, because to me, that is slightly different. I don't know why, right? So if you're visually impaired, that's a disability because it prevents you from being able to interact in a society where that is truly not designed for you. And
I get the ableism in that, right? I get that there is a framework that's saying sighted people are the majority, right? So the whole world is structured around sight. Right. I get the systemic oppression around that framework and how that plays out. Mm-hmm. Your hair falling out, though.
According to the ADA, not that the ADA is the, no, but it's the arbiter of everything. Alopecia is not considered medically disabling. Usually people with alopecia are in excellent health, but emotionally the disease can be challenging.
Yes. So it reminds me of, because I have really bad eyesight, I wear contacts, but I remember, it reminds me of the definition of legal blindness, which is if your eyesight is so poor that it can't be corrected up to a certain point with corrective lenses, right? And so technically, am I disabled because I have really bad eyesight? No, because I can correct for it and still be able to see. And so that's kind of how I think of it. So I know lots of people with alopecia who find various ways of managing it. Some of them embrace that and they just go on with it. Some get tattoos, some wear hair pieces and that sort of thing. And so I would say if you can account for it, then it's probably not the technical definition of a disability. It's kind of what I'm thinking.
I'm going to let y'all know, though, Nicole Hannah-Jones was tweeting about it, and she was questioning whether it was a disability. and she got flamed up.
I know
okay?
they did. And that is the last part,
Up.
G-Day. I want us to come to this last part. Which now that I'm thinking about it, we need a whole nother podcast on this episode. To your point, which I think your last point in our dissecting with all of the sub layers within the layers was about like the social media part, the commentary, right? And there's what I eventually ended up tweeting later on today was this moment. Social media is not equipped for this moment because it is multiple asynchronous conversations being had about things that is so nuanced and so multi-layered that requires actual discourse. Even this podcast is insufficient, right? We may be coming to conclusions among ourselves as we talk among ourselves, but in terms of it being an actual discourse, I call bullshit. And I think one of the levels of toxicity about our current social structure is that we think tweeting and going live and our TikToks about a particular issue is a form of discourse. And I call bullshit. It is not how our neurobiology is wired for interpersonal interactions. And in fact, it has caused me to be very dysregulated because it's not a conversation. It's like all of these little micro assaults and challenges. And there is an inherent human experience to have to be socially acceptable. We all want that. We all want to be seen with esteem by others. That's how our esteem is sort of created. And so we're all trying to put something out there that we think is the quote unquote right thing to say, or the quote unquote elevated thing to say, or the quote unquote on brand thing to say. And it's just a lot of people yelling into the goddamn void that don't have nothing to do with Will Smith and his unresolved trauma, Chris Rock and his neuroatypicality, or whatever that lesson learned is for him, and Jada Pinkett Smith and her embarrassment and humiliation. None of this shit that y'all spreading around is going to deal with that particular issue at all.
So can I ask one more question, and we have one more brief discussion, okay?
Yes.
Really quick. So there's also an idea on social media going around saying, white people, I don't want to hear what you have to say. White people, I don't want to hear what you have to say. So, and I talked about this early this morning with y'all, so I'll just say it here. So, and I don't ever want to be in no position defending white people, dog. I hope y'all understand that, okay?
Why y'all making me do this?
Don't make me do this, okay? But this whole Oscars thing is a reasonable person could look at it and say, this is an attempt at validation from white culture. That's why people want the Oscar so bad. Because he probably has a million NAACP Image Awards and BET Awards and whatever. But no, I gotta have that Oscar. Why? Because it shows validation from white society. Spike Lee's the same way. Many black actors are the same way. Okay? It's about...
Let me interrupt. Let me add this layer.
Please,
because I ain't heard nobody talk about this. The whole Oscar so white came off of Will and Jada. Y'all ripped that shit off. Like, y'all was the one that created that whole hashtag and boycotted because you thought Will should have been nominated for some shit and he didn't get it.
I didn't realize
so
that.
So now y'all want to be up in the space? Shut the hell up.
And y'all want to be in the space, and y'all behaved in this way at let's be clear, the Oscars is a white space, okay? That they are allowing drip, 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 little sprinkles here and there. It is a white space, okay? And y'all went up there, okay? Because who watches the Oscars? It's mostly white. I bet if you watch the demographics who watch the Oscars, it's mostly white people, okay?
Let me tell you something. I literally was asking, is there any black people nominated for something? Otherwise, I'm not watching. That's my Oscar watching barometer. Are we up for anything? What we up for? Oh, we only got this year? I ain't gonna watch it.
Yep.
And I think that's probably 90% of black people. Okay, 90%.
85. Mostly though, so,
yes.
You're in this space, you're in a white space, and you behaved shockingly, like unpredictably triggered, dysregulated in an open white space. You cannot then, that you want it to be in so bad. Okay, that y'all want it to be in so bad that this is the only space that you recognize that gives you legitimacy, right? You cannot then say, white people, you can't talk about this. You can't do it. You can't do it. You can't do it.
Yeah.
You went up in them people's house and acted a fool. So they gonna have some things to say.
You didn't do that to source of words. You know what I'm saying? You didn't do this at a BD after party. You know, at Beyonce's after party. No, you did it in the no. So that just doesn't hold. You know,
as a funny and discharging aside, there were people that were showing Beyonce. Some people saying, "I know y'all didn't act the fool at Beyonce's Oscars award," like, and then they showed her like getting like, "Let me get out of here. I can't be among y'all peasants. Y'all out here slapping people in the face.
Man.
Let me get back to my house."
Man, they said Beyonce was there when Kanye interrupted Taylor Swift, when Lil Mama interrupted Jay-Z, and people are like, "See, that's why Beyonce don't leave the house." You know, because it's how y'all behave when she's out. You know,
y'all don't know how to act. Y'all just don't know how to act.
Would it change anything? And then we'll go to the last nerve. I'm sorry. I'm just throwing this out there. Would it change anything if Will Smith said, "You know what? Before I was getting really nervous and I had 3 shots of vodka and I just, I was feeling myself." Would that change anything for y'all?
What I want from Will Smith is accountability.
That's it, G-Day. That is it.
I want him to say, "You know what? Listen." And even after, he's like, even his speech after really didn't take any accountability. I want him to say, "You know what, dog? Listen, he said this joke, which I thought was in bad taste. I'm not defending the joke, but I responded in a way that was not good. It don't matter if you're drinking, because there's white people who say, "Oh, well, I said the N word because I had medication mix-ups," right? And we don't want to hear it. We don't want to hear it.
I was in blackface. I didn't understand that I shouldn't be.
You behaved
yeah.
You behaved poorly. You behaved poorly.
Good point.
I know we're saying, we're trying to wind this down, but I do think this is important to say, right? Much to your point, G-Day, in terms of whether it was that it was out of context, right? Like the accountability piece for me is what's critical. Whenever you have used violence, right, at a time where you were the one that incited the violence, and it doesn't feel like it was the appropriate response, afterwards you always feel embarrassed or ashamed. Like afterwards you always come down like, "Oh my God, I could have done A, B, C, D, E, F, or G," right? Mm-hmm. And the ability to be able to make amends for that, to take account for that, equally in a public sphere, will never happen, right? Because the moment is done. Mm-hmm. So we won't ever get that. And then I also wonder, like, what's the lesson learned for you, Will Smith? Because you went on to win the award.
And you got a standing ovation, and got a standing ovation during his speech.
So I do worry about that accountability. And for me, it also intersects with this other part of the conversation that we're having about all of this stuff being sort of adjudicated in the social media sphere of like our society. Like, you're not going to get me to, again, defend conservatives' hatred for quote unquote cancel culture. But we have devolved to such a place where like transformative justice or accountability for things just doesn't exist. We still are like always operating in what I think is sort of even supremacist frameworks, or even how to handle discord, how to handle conflict. That's why I think we can justify him using violence in that way, right?
Mm-hmm. I mean, there are people still defending Kanye West's behavior. You know what I'm saying? And he's being an abusive ex-spouse, to be clear, yes. Right? And there's people still saying, well, you got to fight for your family, you got to whatever. Toxic masculinity and patriarchy. Mm-hmm. Okay? Toxic masculinity. I don't think this is the last time we'll talk about this, honestly. Nope. I don't. We will come back to this.
It's the slap heard around the world. Like this now is it's gonna go around the world.
Oh, God.
Like,